Reich was the Eagles' offensive coordinator in 2017 when Wentz posted a career-best 78.5 QBR and 33 passing touchdowns. Max.
Yep.
You have been, I would say, a little critical of Carson Wentz. Is that fair?
Sure. Yeah, I expect a lot out of him.
Yeah,
yep.
right? Because, he had a breakout season, won Sylvania, the whole thing.
I was calling him MVP that year.
Yep, okay.
Until he got hurt.
Do you believe that he can have a bounce-back season this year now that he's with such a talented team and with his former coach that he had success with?
No, because see those stats we just showed? When we say bounce back, that's what we're really talking about, everybody.
Yeah.
Can he get back to the heights he hit? Frank Reich, right? Oh, what's the excuse? You got a team around you, Frank Reich? No, because in 2017, Carson Wentz wasn't just a starting quarterback. He was the best player in football. If the season would have continued like that, he was going to win MVP. Now, since then, Mahomes has come around and some guys better than Wentz was even then. But certainly a bounce-back season would mean he's elite again. Elite. He has not been elite since then. Don't forget, the next year was a disappointment. They were 5-6, under 5-5, 5-6, 500 or just under 500. When he went down, team was flat. They were going to miss the playoffs. Foles came in again. They caught fire, made the playoffs, won a playoff game without Wentz. And since then, it's been down, down, down. And I know other people have been saying, no, he's really good. But I kept noticing, and it continued downward trend, and then eventually he lost his job. So can he bounce back from a guy who can't start? Yes, from that he can. Because you can't do any worse. He lost his job last year because he was the worst starter in football. He will not be that again. Did Frank Reich help him when he was in Philly? Absolutely, yes. That's what I hear. Doug Peterson was the head coach, but it was Frank Reich and DeFilippo who were really the guys working with him at the time. But you know something? DeFilippo is in Chicago. And Frank Reich, while he did good work with Carson Wentz, from everything I hear out of Philly, he was the good cop. DeFilippo was the bad cop. And you know what Carson Wentz needs right now? He needs the bad cop. He needs the guy to tell him, to hold him accountable every step of the way. Not just to, so much of Wentz's game is these amazing athletic plays that very few other people can do. He's a tough guy, play through injury, high threshold for pain, and make these amazing plays so that the little details go by the wayside. DeFilippo was that guy, not Reich, according to everything I hear, Stephen A., and that's the guy he would need, at least. He is not going to bounce back to what he was in 2017.
I feel where you're coming from, and I understand it, and I'll give you credit where credit is due because it's consistent with what you've been saying. Fair enough. But I think that Carson Wentz could definitely have a bounce-back year this year. I got a lot of faith in him. I think that last year was an extreme aberration. I think that we've learned in the aftermath of seeing the things that have transpired in Philadelphia that it was an absolute mess. He wasn't on the same page as Doug Peterson. Doug Peterson wasn't on the same page as Howie Roseman, and as a result, the owner, Jeffrey Lurie, found himself in a quandary because Roseman was a guy, if you recall, back in the days when Chip Kelly was there, once upon a time, once Chip Kelly first arrived, he was given all that power. And once we realized that he was an absolute mess, what they did was the Howie Roseman, they had moved out, they had brought back in, empowered him, ultimately winning a Super Bowl, particularly once Carson Wentz went down and Nick Foles came in and filled in as admirably as he did. But then from that day on, Carson Wentz had something to prove. They had to make a decision about him between Nick Foles. Nick Foles and him were battling for the locker room because Nick Foles was beloved. Carson Wentz, not so much. Even though a lot of dudes respected him, other dudes were a bit divided on him, to say the least. And then you had an issue with strategy and all of that stuff. So the Philadelphia Eagles situation was an absolute mess. They should have been running the ball more, shouldn't have passed as much. Some of the play calling that Doug Peterson was doing, Roseman and those guys weren't happy about it. That's the situation that existed in Philadelphia. That's not what's going on here in Indianapolis. Frank Reich is the man. You even know his relationship with Carson Wentz dating back to their days in Philadelphia. Jonathan Taylor is coming off an 1,100-yard rushing season, averaging 5 yards a carry. T.Y. Hilton is still there. Michael Pittman is still there. So when you look at some of the weapons, particularly with the offensive line, and Quentin Nelson expected to be back for game one, just like Carson Wentz due to that foot surgery, I think that when you look at the personnel surrounding Carson Wentz, it says that there's no way in hell this year is going to be as bad as last year, and that's all you need for Indianapolis to really make a run for their division crown.
Oh, he'll be better. As I said, how could he be worse? But, see, I don't agree that it was just a mess last year, and that's why Carson Wentz. I saw a downward trend. I saw it, yes, and the year before. That's my point. Remember when everyone was like, oh, he's in the MVP conversation almost, Carson Wentz, the way he carried the Eagles to the division crown. What I saw in the second half of 2019 especially, but it even predated that, was a guy whose every single part of his game had gone backwards. Every part of his game. And he was turning the ball over on third down in the fourth quarter, and they would be lucky to recover the ball. And then he would make a spectacular play.
Yep.
But it was all this regression in every single category as a quarterback. And he seemed to think he was the cat's meow.
Simple question before we move on, Molly. And it's a question to both of y'all. We're talking about the quarterback position. So my relationship with the coach is not the greatest. My relationship inside the locker room wasn't the greatest because it was a locker room divided because you had a lot of people who felt that you should roll with Nick Foles, and obviously that didn't happen. You know that the head coach and the GM ain't on the VP of football operations ain't on the same page with him and Howie Roseman. And you're also in the middle of all of that because you don't necessarily vibe with the coach. You're not vibing with the locker room. And you know that the organization is going to at least have to consider trading you. So remember, Nick Sirianni is the coach now, okay? The head coach is gone, all right? Your quarterback is gone. You got a lot of situations. You got a lot of stuff that has happened. What quarterback do you know succeeds under those circumstances?
Yeah, and I want to add one more thing to buffer that point, Stephen A. And you mentioned the O-line. Wentz was sacked 50 times last season. That's the most in the NFL. And now he joins a team with the second best O-line in the NFL. So he has to be thrilled about having better protection. I get that some of it's his fault.
Not some of it, all of it. Molly,
Matt,
Jalen Hurts wasn't sacked. Jalen Hurts wasn't touched that much.
He's sacked 50 times, and every single time is his fault.
No, of
Come
course
on,
not.
Max.
It's a team game. The point is to point to his sack total and blame the Eagles. Why wasn't Jalen Hurts getting roughed up like that? And Jalen Hurts is not exactly an all-pro quarterback.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.